Family, what's going on? Good morning. Good morning. Today we have a wonderful guest, a wonderful family that's very dear to my heart. Wonderful family. I know you guys are going to enjoy their life, peek into a little bit of their life and what's going on and how God has called them and the ministry they've been into. And so I'm going to bring them on in a little bit. If you can share this interview, like this interview. We're also on YouTube. And so you can go also on YouTube and check it out at Free Life Community Church on YouTube, and we're live on Facebook. So we're gonna bring them on right now, and these are the Meas family. Now I'm gonna wrap myself out right now. I've probably known them for about 4 or 5 years. I've been calling them the Meas family for all this time, but I just realized that they were called the Meas family, so apologies. And so we're gonna bring them on, the Meas family, and here we go. What's
Hi.
up, family? How you guys doing?
Morning.
What's up, Noah? Look at that. I love it. So these are the Meas family, and why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Patricia. This is Noah.
I'm Lucky.
Lucky, what's going on, man? How you guys doing? You guys doing good?
Good, yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on this morning. I might have to, I was just talking to Patricia when we were off, I might have to kind of rebrand this show because it seems like a lot of people are going back to work in the morning. And so we want a lot of people to be on this interview. So I don't know, I might have to think about it. So we'll see what's going on. Yeah, so thanks again for coming on. And so the first question I want to start with, right, is always is how'd y'all meet? You know, the story that I've heard was, you know, obviously you met in church. Patricia was part of the choir. Lucky was saying, "Hey, who's that?" I don't know if that's true, but probably. But why don't you guys give us a little bit of how you guys met? But first, before that, can you guys maybe identify yourselves? What ethnicity are you guys? Or yeah, so let's go with that first.
Okay, so I'm Filipino. I was born and raised in the Philippines, came here in the US when I was 11 or 12.
I was born here in America, but my parents are Cambodians. I'm Cambodian as well. Parents escaped the refugees, so they had no choice but to come to America to escape the regime and all that killing field and all that stuff. So I guess I'm pretty much lucky to be here. God just placed us all over here to be together. It's kind of crazy.
Is that why your name Lucky?
Yeah, there's a long story to that one.
Okay. Well, that's a pretty good story, though. If you tell that story and you say that, you know, lucky to be here, I believe that. So that's pretty good. Okay, so how'd you guys meet? What happened?
So we met at church when the youth director wanted to make a youth group. Before it was just all the Filipino youth, but then when she had found out that there's youth in the Tongan ministry and the Cambodian ministry, so she wanted to get everybody together. So that's how we met from the youth group, and then eventually the youth director wanted to start a praise and worship team. So that's basically how we started hanging out and getting to know each other through the youth group and the praise and worship band.
That's awesome. And so you guys, so you were all part of the worship team, right?
Yeah.
And so what did you play? Not the choir. Yes. What did you play? Like, did you guys play instruments? Did you guys sing, or what's going on? Was Lucky like shredding it somewhere? Or what's going on?
I played the keyboard and I also sang. And Lucky played the lead guitar.
Oh, nice. And then, you know, probably one song, you guys looked at each other, and then bam, that's how it happened, right? I think. I don't know. So what was it like, you know, Patricia, you being Filipino and Lucky being Cambodian, coming from two different fellowships? What was the dynamic like between the fellowships? And, you know, was there any, you know, challenges to continue to meet and continue to process and now getting married? What was that like?
Well, it's very different as far as starting with the church. The Cambodian have their own way of doing fellowship and their own way of worship. So it's definitely different whenever they join us. But being younger and being a part of the youth group, it's easier for us to transition. So the cultural barrier isn't that hard to break into.
Yeah.
As far as cultural, since Lucky was basically born and raised here, he has Cambodian traditions at home, but as far as his cultural identity outside of the home, he's basically American.
Right.
So it wasn't very hard as far as us hanging out together,
Yeah.
but going into his family, getting to know them, it was a little bit difficult because their number one was a language barrier,
Mm.
and his parents are also a different religion, so it's
Mm.
hard for me to talk about my faith or talk to them about church because it's not something that they can relate with. So
Yeah.
it was challenging, but we
Yeah.
always found like a common ground to hang out and get to know each other. So it
Yeah.
worked out, and it's still basically the same thing. His parents are still not the same faith as ours, but
Mm.
we always find a common ground whenever we're together.
Yeah. So Lucky, how do you feel when your parents are because uh yeah, so when your parents are different religion, can't speak the language, how does that make you feel when it comes to like, oh man, how am I supposed to balance all this? Because as you know, even though my wife is Korean, she's from Korea, right? And so even though I'm Korean American, there's still this cultural barrier. Not that much language, but there's this cultural barrier of like, how do I act or what do I say? I don't know, Lucky. What was your thoughts?
Yeah, but my mom, she's pretty much open because the people who brought her into this country was actually Christians as well. So
Oh,
she was kind of like good that that happened. So it kind of like made her still feel this connection. Like, oh, it's like a full circle now. Like
mm,
the people that saved me now they saved my son. Now I just gotta get my
wow.
other family member, my brothers and sisters get into it. But yeah, but my mom was in the church for a while. I don't know, maybe because she was so clingy to her old faith that she
Mm,
couldn't stay with the church. So her
yeah,
belief was kind of, with her
Mhm.
yeah.
ancestors more than the Jesus.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. I think, sometimes as people of faith, especially Christians, even though we might disagree with other people's faith or traditions, it's good that as humans, we can be open to continue to walk together, to live together. And now,
Mm,
because you're joined together as family, there is that common ground of family now and a new family that you
mm,
guys have formed and a
Mhm.
beautiful grandson, right?
Yeah.
And so, was it challenging? It's not just by faith, but culturally to kind of be like, was there any um reservations between your family, Patricia, and Lucky's family, like two cultures coming together? How was that like? How was that process?
As far as reservations, there wasn't very much, luckily. With Lucky's family, I know that his mom is a lot more traditional
Mm,
as far as, culture. She still wants to have the traditional Cambodian wedding. You know, she still celebrates like traditional Cambodian and Chinese because she's also part Chinese, right?
mm,
Holidays. So those are important to her. So even though it's not something that I think is important or something I can relate to, I respect it because that's her belief.
mm,
And she does the same thing about Christmas and all the other, I guess, Christian like
yeah.
holidays. But she respects it when we pray. When she goes to the temple, she brought us one time. That I don't know anything about that, but it just goes to show about respect. So I went in and
no, that's pretty cool.
and I participated. It's very interesting, but
Wow.
it's fun. It's good when everybody has like an open mind
Yeah.
about all these cultural differences. You don't have to agree, you don't have to believe, but you just have to have an open mind and respect everyone's traditions and cultural beliefs and
Yeah.
traditions and all this stuff. So it works out. So it wasn't very hard. Honestly, the hardest part for me is the language barrier, because I know that his mom wants to talk to me. I know that she wants to get to know me, but she can't do that without Lucky in the middle translating. And I feel like when someone is translating what the other person is saying, it's not as intimate or it's
Right.
not as direct.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's probably the hardest. Even now, it's still the hardest because she wants to have a nice bonding time with her grandson, but obviously Noah doesn't even know a lot of languages, but it's
Yeah.
definitely tough as far as language, but
Yeah.
we make it work, and she still loves having us over, even though half the time it was we don't understand each other.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's intense. Yeah, because it could be a little awkward when Patricia, you're like, "Hey, mom, what's going on? How'd you have, did you have a good time?" And Lucky's there saying, she says, "What's up?"
Yeah, there was one
You
time
know what I
when
mean?
she asked, "Do you love Lucky?" And then Lucky has to say, "She's asking if you love me." So that's it's so
Yeah,
awkward.
yeah, it's awkward. Yeah, so me and my wife, when I talk to my mother-in-law, I can conversate with her, right? But there
Yeah.
are certain words or phrases that I might not know, and things that she says that I don't understand. That my wife has to be in the middle translating it,
Hmm.
and so sometimes I'm like, no, that's not what I said. Say what I said. And so yeah, so it could be, but it's a learning process. It's a learning, it's a process, and I think that's the beauty of sometimes when we marry outside of our own and continue
Hmm.
to build this kingdom that God has called us to unite with all of these people, because you can learn so much from everywhere. And at the end of the day, language is probably the only thing that kind of separates us, but feelings are the same, right? Pain
Yeah.
is pain, sorrow is sorrow, joy is joy. And so we
Hmm.
can see that through the actions, right? Physical actions. And so that's
Hmm.
a beautiful thing. What about your family, Patricia? How do they react when this Cambodian stud came into this life? You know what I mean?
Well, honestly, the beginning it was not very
Lucky's there shaking his head in the back.
Lina's on, so she knows.
um
That's funny.
talking about being traditional. My parents are very strict when it
Mm.
came to
Earrings are gone.
dating. Back then, Lucky had a whole different look. Lucky
What
had
was
like
that look?
he had like the long hair, and
Let's
he
do
had
it.
piercings. He had
Yes.
studs, and he was wearing his skinny jeans with
Oh man.
he was a totally different
Yeah.
person. So it was tough bringing him into the family and getting my parents to like him,
Yeah.
because traditional Asian parents and their perception of somebody that looks like that
Right.
they're like, they're not good for
Right. Right. Right.
and also Lucky is not like the perfect, I guess, image of the perfect boyfriend, because
Right.
Lucky did um, other things. He drinks, or
Yeah.
he at least used to. He used to smoke. So
Yeah.
my my parents automatically thought that, oh, he's a bad influence. Like
Yeah.
he's he's not gonna be good for you. He's not gonna bring anything positive in your
Mm.
life. So it was tough. Um, the relationship was definitely based off of like, how are we gonna make my parents like you? How are we
Wow.
gonna convince them that you're not a horrible person that they think
Mm.
you are?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it was tough in the beginning, but throughout the whole relationship, I think my parents or my family saw that he is sincere about me, and that, he has no bad intentions.
Yeah.
So he did have to make some changes, you know.
Yeah.
Both parties had to basically change the way they see each other,
Mm.
and they got to know Lucky. He was always there for me. He always tried to, make my parents feel comfortable about
Mm,
him. So
yeah.
eventually they warmed up to him, and now here we are.
That's right. That's right. Lucky you, a bad man, brother. I love it. I know you probably had like you probably have a closet or a shoebox where you put your jeans and your studs and you're like, man, one of these
We
days,
got the ripped jeans.
geez, one of these days I'm gonna whip it out and just go on town with this stuff. So, I still got like some of my I still got some of my clothes like deep in my closet somewhere. And every time I throw it out, I'm like, man, I can't. Too many memories with this stuff. It don't fit no more, but that's what it is. But yeah, it seems like so again, we go back to this sense of humanity that even though different cultures, the values are very similar
Yeah.
across all cultures, right? We want the best for our children. We want to communicate with one another. We want to show love and appreciation. So I think, it comes back to we as Christians, how are we supposed to live out this gospel that we hear of Jesus? And it's what you guys are doing right now, right? Living it out rather than kind of talking about it all the time. So when I see your family, I'm like, man, like, without intentional work, right? Without intentional trying, there's no way probably this relationship would have been as successful because you guys, I mean, you literally can't talk to your parent. I mean, Patricia, you literally can't talk to Lucky's mom and dad. So how do we do that? We have to do it through action, through love, and through showing. And I think that's the epitome of what the gospel stands for. Yeah, so you guys have a beautiful family. I always love watching you guys just be together, and especially how you take care of Noah, which we want to transition into. And so I want you to talk about your son a little bit because he's a special kid, you know what I mean? So talk
Yes,
about
he
him a little
is.
bit.
So Noah's 5 years old. He just turned 5 last month, and he just graduated from preschool.
Awesome.
Yeah. So when Noah was about 18 months old, he was diagnosed with autism.
Mm,
So Noah has struggles as far as, his speech ability. He has a hard time communicating. He also has a hard time reciprocating feelings. So it's not that he doesn't care that you're showing any sort of excitement around him. He just doesn't know how to
right.
connect with you emotionally because he has a different cognitive and perception of feelings and understanding.
Right.
So that's basically what we've been working with him for the past 3 years.
Yeah.
He's been going through therapy, and he's made a lot of progress. He's a very sweet boy. He's very shy, but
Mm,
he loves.
affectionate.
He's very affectionate, but
Right.
only to the people that he knows.
That's
So a
right.
lot of people would think that, oh, he doesn't like me, or he doesn't because he doesn't make eye contact either. So
Right.
a lot of people think that just Noah just doesn't like them, but it's just, this one of his struggles is communication, any sort of communication, whether it's through body language or actual language.
Right.
He struggles with. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when I first met Noah, I said, "What's up, man?" And then he kind of like, just glanced over me, right? But I put up my fist and then he gave me a fist bump. So
Yeah.
he knew. And so I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's awesome." And so yeah, he's very affectionate. I've seen him with other kids, especially my son and he actually might behave better than my son sometimes. And so but that's his yeah, so that's a good quality that Noah has. So tell me about something maybe if you can share. What was it like finding out, right? Because as parents, right, if I can be honest, as parents, we have this idea of what our kid might look like or behave, whether it's a
Yeah.
son or a daughter. And sometimes having special needs is probably not in one of the priorities, right? Like we don't think about that stuff a lot. And so I don't know if it was a difficulty for you or you're like, hey, it is how God made, which I would think is probably, you know, uh, I mean, if you had that mind and a heart, and I'm not saying if you didn't, you're a different person, but it's a challenging thing to accept,
Yeah.
and so how did you feel when you found out? And and then we'll go with maybe Patricia and then Lucky. How did you feel? Because even as a father, when you have a son, you're like, this is gonna be my spitting image, this is what I'm gonna display to the world, right? And so yeah, so talk about that if you can share.
So when we had found out, I've always kind of had a hunch because
Mm,
I have two nieces and a nephew, and I've seen them grown and I saw their development throughout the years. So when I noticed that Noah wasn't doing those things, I started to get a little concerned.
mm,
So when we went to his doctor, and right off the bat, he said that Noah is in the spectrum, Noah has autism. I
mm,
was at part of me was like relieved, but main part of me was in denial because
mm,
my thing was like, okay, how do we fix it? Because I don't
mm,
want him to be that. So that was like my main reaction
mm,
was denial, because as a parent you don't want anything to be wrong with your child. You want them to be perfect. You have all of
right.
these plans for them to succeed and to have this type of life, and then you found out that, oh yeah, no, he's not going to be that. Well,
Mm,
it kind of sucks. And I wish I was one of those parents who said, well, this is how God made him, so we'll
mm,
work with it. That kind of came in last. It like kind of came in
yeah.
towards the end, because my main goal was like, we're gonna fix it, we're gonna fix him, because I was like, something's not right with him. So
Mm,
it was a lot of just being in denial and trying
mm,
to figure out how we can make Noah just like the other kids. So it was a struggle. I definitely tried to ignore the fact that there's obviously something different about Noah. And it wasn't until like when he was getting a little bit older and you're starting to see the major difference when he's around other children, you're like, yeah, I definitely should just you know try to do what's best for him and try to
yeah.
stop making him like all the other children, which I think is,
Mm,
there's nothing wrong with that. But you're so fixated on trying to normalize something that's for him is normal. Like
that's
for
right.
me, it
That's
isn't.
good.
So because there's a stigma that if somebody has special needs, they're automatically excluded from like society. Like they
Right.
can never be like everyone. But it's totally not that. It's just accepting them for who they are, and this is who they are, and you just have to see the world the way they do.
Wow.
And yeah, and then uh, throughout the years he's made a lot of progress with therapy. So we actually enjoy him just the way he is. We
That's
actually
right.
learned a lot too whenever he does therapy. So
Mm,
yeah, so for me, my initial reaction when I found out was denial. And then throughout the years, I've accepted it, and I've I always been more supportive than I've always thought I would be.
amen. Amen. What about you, Lucky? Well, how did you feel?
Oh, oh man. I don't know. I just at first I was like, I didn't think it was what it was until like I started noticing like he's not doing what like regular kids at his age was doing. So it's kind of slow. So I was like, oh, okay, it's that's it. That's how it is. That's what's gonna be like. So it's gonna be a lot more challenge, which I like challenge. I like
Mm,
working on stuff like that. And then back of my mind, I was like, I'm a sports guy, and like my son's not gonna be a sports guy, or in
mm,
sports like a team sport. He can be
yeah.
like an individual guy,
Yeah.
but like a team sport, he probably can't function in it because there's a lot of rules, a lot of
Mm,
like stuff, like especially where like when you play sports, you kind of know what the other players
right.
thinking.
Right.
That's something Noah doesn't really have
Mm,
awareness. So that's why I was like thinking like, that's not gonna be his thing, so that's fine.
Mhm.
Um, we can work on something else. There's always gonna be like like people say with God give you a window. When the one door closes, there's a window.
Yeah.
He'll open the window for you. So that's what I see. And then I noticed that he loves music. So it's like that's
Right.
something that kind of passed down from us to him.
Yeah.
That's right.
He
You rock
likes,
stars.
yeah,
That's how y'all
yeah.
met, right?
See him rapping in his own little
Wow.
language.
Wow. Yeah, he's gonna be rapping in Tagalog and in Khmer. That's gonna be fire. I can't wait to buy that album.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like language,
Yeah.
it's crazy how we take that for granted. For him, he
Mm,
can't speak. He doesn't know how to communicate. And
mm.
us, we take that for granted. It's like for me, I don't even communicate to my parents like
Wow.
how I communicate to him now. And then I don't really show that much affection to my dad, but to see me doing so much with him is like wow, it's crazy, man. It's
Wow.
like he just
Yeah.
brought in to make us more aware
Right.
and not take whatever for granted.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's beautiful. So yeah, so that was my next question is what is the biggest thing that you learned from Noah?
Patience,
Patience, yeah.
Mm,
definitely. I've always been like, let's get it done. Like,
yeah.
what's broken, let's fix it.
Yeah.
I don't like wasting time. So with Noah, you have to take your time. You have to basically just like slow down. You have to
Yeah.
kind of get down into his level and try to.
Wow.
You have to think the way he thinks because otherwise he will not understand what you're thinking about or what
Yeah.
you're doing. So you have to have a lot of patience. You have to
Yeah.
definitely slow down a lot, and then you know try
Yeah.
to communicate at a different pace, different level.
Yeah.
um, and then also you have to be able to work with his struggles.
Mm,
He's not like one of those kids that you show one thing and they're like, okay, they'll do it. With Noah, you have to do it multiple times. You kind of have to show him
right.
why you're doing it. You have to show it step by step.
Yeah.
So you have to have a lot of patience with any child with special needs.
Right.
But with Noah, it's one of the biggest things, like what we've mentioned this whole time, it's language. So
Right.
sometimes he doesn't know how to say things, so he would just do it through emotion. So he would cry
Mm,
when he's frustrated. He would cry whenever he wants something, but he can communicate it. So you have to when that's his reaction, you have to be more compassionate, you have to be more
wow.
patient. You can't just reciprocate the feeling with anger or frustration, otherwise you're both
That's
basically
right.
not going to be able to get anywhere.
That's right.
So a lot of patience definitely is what we learned. How about you? What have you learned? That's for me was the biggest is patience
Yeah.
because I before no I was the most impatient person. I think now I'm still very impatient,
Yeah.
but I've learned a lot to slow down
That's right.
and to pay attention to what other people's feelings are, not just mine, and really try to get to um, know Noah's struggles and
Mm,
work with it rather than trying to fix it my way or trying
mm,
to do things my way. It's definitely seeing the big picture and what works best for him, because at the end of the day it's not about me, it's about my son, and
mm.
making sure that his needs are being met and he's being taken care of, and that he feels like he has parents that he can trust and he can feel comfortable with. So
That's
we
right.
have to definitely work with that.
That's good. What about you, Lucky?
Same. I mean,
Yeah.
we both have the same struggles, challenges. We both feel the same way. I'm more patient than her. I like to make it more structured.
Mm,
Sometimes I fall into the cycle of my way
mm,
because what I think is like, oh, I think I know what my son likes or what he knows, but I have to just step back a little bit and have the professionals do their thing.
right.
Yeah,
Right.
and then I guess love and caring. That's all he needs.
That's good.
Support. Yeah.
That's good.
Hmm.
You, While you guys were talking, there's some things that I picked out. Is number one, you talked about Noah as, for the world, right? Certain behaviors might not be normal, but for him, this is how he sees the world.
Yeah.
So we can't stigmatize, we can't shame how he sees the world because that's his norm, right?
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
so that's number one. And it's awesome what Lucky said too. Just because he might not be able to do one thing, that doesn't mean his it's done. Just find another way.
Yeah.
And so this type of attitude, um, we actually, I mean, I'm already learning so much about how to be uh how to be pastoral, right? And
Mhm.
you guys are probably a very good model of what a lot of pastors need to learn about patience, about compassion. I love what you said about getting to their level. Um, and as leaders sometimes, and you guys are leaders in your respective field. If you don't know how to get into people's level, they're going to be frustrated, right? Because
Mhm.
you're not going to understand how to communicate to one another, and then you're going to get these things that's going to happen, that's going to block from relationship to happening. So as you
Yeah.
guys are learning, I'm like jotting down: be more compassionate, be more patient, get to their level. Because I'm the same way, man. If I don't get my thoughts across and people don't understand, I get so angry. But
Yeah.
um, but then you
Mhm.
guys are teaching me, man, and that's what the church needs to keep on doing.
Yeah.
Be at people's level, because that's what Jesus did. I mean, Jesus was so much at his disciples' level. What did he do? Wash their feet, right?
Right.
That's the
Mhm.
level that Jesus was at, and Jesus was God. We got to remember this.
Mhm.
But in the Bible, there are times when there are times when he was God, right? He was the God. But then there are times where we didn't even know that, like, our mind didn't go. We just thought of him as a servant, right?
Yeah.
And so this drastic change of how we are, depending on who we're serving, is very important as parents, as leaders, and especially as a church. And I think sometimes the church is kind of missing that a little bit. And so, I want to get into where now it hits. How do we as a church, and this is always my question, how do we as a church continue to have space and resources? And what have you seen that worked in the church? And what have you seen you're like, man, I wish there was something that the church can do better, right? So I don't know, what
Mhm.
was your experiences now, Noah, and your family being in the church? Yeah, so tell me something about that.
Yeah, so we've been pretty fortunate that, we have family at church and my sister's in charge of the children's ministry. So we
Mm,
feel comfortable that Noah's there by himself.
right.
But if it was at another church, I would definitely have reservations leaving Noah alone because I don't know how inclusive it is with children's ministry, from other
Mm,
churches with children with special needs. Would they know if Noah needed anything because he can't
mm,
communicate? Would they be able to accommodate his needs? Because it's one thing to like take care of like 20 kids at a time, but you
right.
have one child, right there who has a different type of need. So
But we don't want to isolate the other kids because you have one kid who's has special needs.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah, yeah.
to me it's like um making it inclusive, for children, the atypical children and children like Noah who has
Hmm.
special needs, um, so that we as parents feel comfortable leaving our child alone with them. Because for a while we didn't bring Noah to the nursery because we
Mm,
didn't know if they would be able to take care of Noah.
right.
So we had to bring Noah to the sanctuary, and you know how it is when you have a little one during
Yeah,
service. One of you have to like switch,
yeah,
taking him out because he's getting bored and he's making noises during worship. So
yeah.
it's definitely a struggle if it was a church that you don't know anybody.
Mm,
Would you, it's like, would you feel safe for your child being alone? If you tell them that, oh, my son has autism, do they have the capacity to, or I guess, the training to take care of children like him?
right, right,
So, to me, the biggest thing is that just making it more inclusive
right, right, right,
for
right,
children like Noah, so that as parents would feel comfortable knowing that, our child
mm,
is,
right.
safe and comfortable where he's at.
Right. Would you feel comfortable if like a church had a separate ministry, uh, or are you thinking more like the teachers should have training for all types of children? I don't know. What do you think?
I feel like the staff should just have training,
Mm,
because I feel like if we are isolating the children with special needs from the other kids,
right.
um, you know, I feel like it's not going to be the same. I feel like all kids should be together, regardless of
Wow.
their background, regardless of their race, their cultural differences, their diagnosis, medical
Yeah. Yeah.
diagnosis.
Yeah.
I feel like we should put them all together, but we should just have, the staff be trained to
Mm,
deal with people like Noah, because it's like we're segregating them based off of their
wow.
medical diagnosis. Like, oh, these are the normal children, these are the special needs. Like, I feel like we should bring them together
Mm,
so that all these other kids growing up would also know that
yeah.
it's okay to be just like Noah. It's okay to be just like Joshua. It's okay to
Yeah.
be just like Levi. But they all see the world differently. But at the end of the day, they're all kids,
Yeah.
and they love Jesus,
Yeah.
and they love church, and they love playing with each other. I feel like the staff should just be trained, so that way they can see, oh, no one needs a break, or he needs to just calm down a little bit, so that way everybody would be happy, everybody would feel
Right. Right.
safe. Mhm.
That's super important, and my mind was always, wow, it'll be good to have a special needs ministry. But after hearing what you guys saying, no, you're super right. I think you're right, and we just have to train our leaders, right?
Mhm.
There's going to be so many different people that come into the foot of the door, and if we start, placing them, oh, you belong here, you belong here, you belong here, we're
Yeah.
doing exactly what the world is doing, and I think Jesus
Yeah.
wants a little
Yeah.
bit more.
Categorizing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I
Mhm.
think Jesus wants a little bit more inclusion when it comes to those type of things. And so, yeah,
Mhm.
thank you for teaching me,
Yes.
because as you know, I'm gonna tell everybody, you guys are part of the team, part of my team that are going to be church planning, and this is a huge conversation for me to have, because my grandmother, when she started ministry, she took care of people with special needs, more adults, right? And so, especially in the Asian culture, as but maybe people don't know, having special needs or just being different is a stigma in itself, right? In the Asian
Mhm.
culture itself. And so back in the day, when my grandma was doing church, she would go to these different convalescent homes and say, hey, if there's any family that don't want their child, it's a horrible thing to say, but that's just the reality of that time. Even in this time, I think so too. Sometimes it's a
Yeah.
horrible thing to say, but my grandma's like, bring them to my house, I will take care of them. And I mean, I don't think it was the best decision, because my grandma had no training. She's like, all like Holy Spirit, God will do everything. But she had that heart, right? She had that heart of serving, first, right? So if you have that heart, there's capacity to learn. And so I used to live with special needs adults, and I thought as a kid they were just normal. They're just super happy all the time, right? But not until I was like 13, I was like, oh man, there's like, we're different, but at the same time, so one of my best friends was like this 40-year-old Korean woman that used to like hide and play hide and seek with me, but she had a mental health disorder. I didn't know that. I was just 10, just playing hide and seek with her, and I was always come to my grandma's. I was like, where's my auntie, and my mom's like, you might not want to play with her that much. But yeah, no, I think you're super right. Just taking care of, and just serving God's children. That's the bottom line, right? Serving God's children. And Patricia and Lucky, you are displaying such, humble, what it means to serve, and that's a calling in itself, because not everybody. I mean, most parents don't think about this stuff, right? But I think as the church, if we're going to build a community that's going to be what the kingdom is going to look like, we have to serve everybody and where anybody's at. And so
Yeah.
this is super important to know. And so thank you guys for just sharing your story. If you had something to leave with, like how can the church, like what you think the church should be better at or continue to learn, what would that be?
Um, so like what I've mentioned before is just making it inclusive.
Mm,
It's hard to go into a church, and it's already hard going into a church, especially
right.
if you're not a member, like feeling welcome, feeling like you're part of the church family, let alone having a child with special needs. So I feel like just making it more inclusive for children like Noah, so that
Mm,
as parents would feel comfortable, making sure that our child is feeling comfortable. And yeah, to me, making the church inclusive for everybody, not just for children like Noah, but
yeah.
your race, your culture background, your how you are socioeconomically, like
Yeah.
just feeling like you belong. So I feel like making the church inclusive,
I
for
think
us specifically, for
mm,
children like Noah, would definitely help us feel more secure and more
Mm,
like we belong in the church community.
mm.
mm.
Lucky, did you want to say something?
Yeah, to me, I think the church is already a safe place for everybody.
Yeah.
I just think that most people just needs to be more educated. That's all.
Yeah, education is huge. And so yeah, we think just because we're the church, we can just not care about things and just
Mm,
praise and sing all the time and pray. But no, you're right. There are people that might not know how to do those things or might not, whatever it is. Um, and that's nothing wrong with it. It's just, if we're part of a community, we just have to educate everybody that what this community is about and accept everybody that we can and just teach them
Mhm.
about the goodness of God. Um, and the way we do it is through word, right? Is through prayer, is through praise, but also is through action. And that's what
Yeah.
you guys are displaying right now and what it means. And so, yeah, thank you guys so much. During this conversation, like, man, like, I was trying not to like get all emotional myself because the way you were describing Noah and like the things that you're doing, I'm just thinking about my own son. I'm like, Paul, hold it
mm.
together, bro. You got to be professional right now. Because I was about to bust into tears, like, oh my gosh, like I wanted to go just, you know what? I'm gonna stop this and I'm gonna go hug my son and daughter real quick and tell them I
So you
love
what,
them.
Paul?
Huh?
I never cried ever because as a man, you think that's
Yeah,
weakness.
yeah.
I cried a lot, but
Wow.
not just sad tears, just
Yeah.
happy tears.
Right, right. So let's not start now because I feel like some droplets are coming in. But it's good.
Must be in
So
here.
yeah, so thank you guys for sharing so much, and I hope this interview is going to be on, and so I'm going to push this interview hard because for people to watch because this is so intense, and I think everybody should learn. I mean, there's something to learn for everybody. So thank you guys for so much for coming on. Hey Noah, thanks for coming on, buddy. You were awesome. Yeah. Fist bump right now.
Fist bump.
Fist bump. Yeah. Remember me? Okay. Well, you can't see me. My fist was there. But yeah, so thank you guys for coming on, and Patricia and Lucky, have a wonderful day, and I'm going to see you guys again very soon. So
Okay.
thank you
Bye.
guys. Peace.